All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating theory that suggests there are these profound numerical patterns hidden deep inside the text of the Quran, almost like a mathematical code woven into its very structure.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? Could there actually be a deliberate, incredibly intricate mathematical design hiding just beneath the surface of this ancient, sacred text? It's an idea that's really intrigued scholars and mathematicians for years.
So, just to be clear, what we're going to do here is walk through the framework of one specific theory. Our goal isn't to prove it or disprove it, but really just to lay out the key arguments and calculations from the source material, step by step, so you can see how it all comes together. Okay, so the whole theory we're looking at, literally the whole thing, is anchored to just one single verse, Surah 15, Ayat 87. This is presented as the key that unlocks everything else. So here's the verse itself. It reads, "And we have certainly given you 7 of the often repeated verses and the great Quran." And right there, you see it, the explicit mention of the number 7. According to this theory, that number is our first big clue.
So where do they go from there? Well, the theory starts by pointing out patterns that are supposedly hiding in plain sight, just using the basic information about the verse itself.
So if you just look at the verse's coordinates, if you will, you get 3 really simple verifiable numbers. The chapter or surah is 15, the verse or ayat is 87, and in the original Arabic, the verse has exactly 7 words. So let's keep those numbers in our back pocket, 15, 87, and 7. Okay, but this is where things get, well, a lot more interesting. The theory takes a huge leap now. It moves beyond the text itself and starts looking at the physical book, proposing what it calls the 1587 code, and this is presented as a central coincidence. Now, this is a really critical detail. To uncover this so-called code, the theory has to shift its focus from the ancient text to a modern, specific printed edition of the Quran. The entire analysis from this point on depends on the page numbers where verse 1587 just happens to fall in this one particular book. So, in this specific printed book, the verse is spread across these 6 pages, 262 all the way to 267. And, on their own, they're just page numbers, nothing special. But the people behind this theory did something pretty simple. They just asked, hey, what happens if you add them all up? And when you do, the sum is 1587, just a clean 4-digit number. And here is the absolute core claim of the theory, the real kicker. That number, 1587, from adding the page numbers, directly mirrors the verse's location, Surah 15 and Ayat 87. You just stick them together. This is the big coincidence that the whole theory is built on, suggesting something deeper is going on. But of course, it doesn't stop there. Proponents of this theory use that 1587 connection as a kind of launchpad to explore this much bigger mathematical web, looking for even deeper connections and patterns. So the theory then expands this calculation. It takes the core numbers, 15 and 87, and then introduces this word position of 6. Now, the source material doesn't really explain how they got that number, but let's follow the logic. You put them all together, side by side, to create the number 15,87,6. And the key thing they point out is that this number just happens to be a perfect square, 126 times 126. And that number, 126, can be broken down even further into 9 times 14. And from there, this web of connections just keeps growing. As you can see in this table, the theory pulls in other numerical links to try and back this all up. The number 7 is connected to this really interesting sequence of 9s. The number 9 is shown to have its own unique properties. And even the 99 beautiful names of God, which is a huge concept in Islam, are brought into the picture as a multiple of 9. So we've seen the how, all the calculations and connections. But the real question is, so what? What's the supposed meaning behind all of this? Why would these patterns even be there in the first place? Okay, to get what the theory is really saying, we have to look at this key word from that main verse, mathani. This refers to the 7 often repeated verses, and they are considered to be incredibly important spiritually among the very first verses revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. So this all leads to the theory's grand conclusion about what these patterns really mean. They aren't just presented as a cool math trick. Instead, the number 7 is seen as a symbol of divine completeness and perfection. The patterns are believed to be there to highlight the immense spiritual weight of the Malthayoni. And ultimately, the whole design is proposed to reinforce the greatness of the Quran al-Azim, the great Quran itself. So at the end of the day, the core idea here is that these complex, layered patterns are not just some random fluke. They're presented as proof of an intentional, hidden structure, a manifestation of divine order woven directly into the fabric of the text. And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, right? Is it a code or is it a coincidence? But no matter what you believe, theories like this raise a fascinating point. How does looking for hidden patterns change the way we read any text? And what new layers of meaning might we be encouraged to search for?